Hey, a quick note before we start. This episode of Tiny Conversations contains more adult subject matter that may be inappropriate for some listeners. Okay, now on with the show.
From age 19 to 37, I slept in a bed with someone every night. So to go from that, 18 years of sleeping with someone beside you, to this big queen-size bed every night alone, it killed me. That's hard.
That is Michelle Parise, and this is Tiny Conversations. I'm Brian Colley. Michelle is a producer on the CBC radio show Spark, mom, and generally candid and super chill person. A few years ago, Michelle went through a very abrupt divorce and is now writing a book on that. Her book is about
being alone and how imposed aloneness feels compared to when you've elected to be alone on your own, because I think it's different.
I was really curious about what Michelle meant by that statement, so I decided to meet her in the lobby of CBC and talk to her. Here's that discussion now. You messaged me and you wanted to talk about loneliness, but different kinds of loneliness. Mm-hmm. And you had some pretty cool names for them. So what do you think, what are the different kinds of loneliness?
I think that there is a difference between alone and feeling lonely. Or I don't know what the difference is, but I'm experiencing, going through figuring out what the difference is between being alone and loneliness, which I think are different things. And I don't really know how yet.
So this change, is it I guess what has been the change? What have you noticed has been the one form of loneliness in your personal life? And then how has that gone into this other kind?
It's the thing I think about the most, basically, and I wish I didn't think about it so much, but I'm constantly aware that I'm alone, even when I have lots of people who love me and lots of good friends and family and my daughter. But there's still this Grand Canyon-sized hole inside of me that all I can call it is loneliness. I'm okay at being alone, let's say. I mean, I have my own home. I have my own mortgage. I have a car. I take care of my daughter half the time. I have a good career. I can be alone and manage life alone, but I don't like it. I like being in a pair. I didn't love domesticity, though, but something about the teammate and having that pair and having that person in your life, even when things were rocky or not exactly perfect. So I'm exploring all of these things. These are the things I think about a lot lately.
When you were talking about that, you said you missed this partnership. And so what are some of the things that maybe, what are those things that you miss, and how are you filling that in?
I think, to be very honest with you, intimacy, actual physical intimacy is a huge thing missing from my life. So if I think about it, so I had a boyfriend, one boyfriend after another since I was 15 years old. And then I met my husband when I was 25. And then we broke up when I was 37. So from age 19 to 37, which is 18 years, I slept in a bed with someone every night. So to go from that, 18 years of sleeping with someone beside you, to this big queen-size bed every night alone, it killed me. That's hard. It's still hard now, 2 years later, but that was a huge thing to overcome. So physical intimacy for sure. And the way that I got through that, and I'm just going to be totally candid because who cares? Because this is life. So, at first, I was very shocked. Obviously, I didn't know my marriage was ending. I spent the first year just sleeping with whoever, and mostly because I wanted the physical intimacy. I didn't want anything else. So it was just Whatever, just sleep with random 25-year-old guys. And it's the artificialness of a pairing. It's like a short-term pairing, right? And then over time, I developed longer-term casual relationships where at least you get to know the person a bit more. And so there's more of also this like temporary pairing feeling. But that only gets you so far, or it only gets me so far. I mean, a lot of people are just great with that. But the casual relationship machine is exhausting. And I think in some ways it contributes a lot to my loneliness.
What's interesting is what you were saying before about how we are pack animals and we have this pairing, and then talking about having this physical intimacy but not sort of necessarily wanting the emotional side of it. But I think what can happen, because I've been there as well, where it's kind of like I've been tricking myself into going, oh, I'm feeling this stuff, and then when it's gone, you really notice it's gone. You really frame it as a partnership. Like there's this contributing sort of factor, and going forward now, you've been on your own for a while. How are you going to approach what's next? Do you have an idea of what you want? If you could just sketch it all down and say, this is what I think are the necessary things.
Well, the thing is, I'm very comfortable. I like having my own place. I can decorate it the way I want. I can handle the finances the way I want. I'm very comfortable in my own surroundings. And maybe this is controversial, but I have come to enjoy having my daughter 50% of the time. So I like that there's more time for me as a human being. Because when you're married and you have a kid, or you're, whatever, when you're in a partnership and you have a kid, I mean, the first 4 or 5 years of her life, I had no time alone. I was never alone. And being alone for an hour was like this dream situation. Now, I mean, one of the good things is, even though I miss her when she's not with me, and it's like another kind of giant hole inside of me that way, on top of everything else being taken away from me, also my daughter is not with me half the time. But what I've gained from that is time to be myself more, time to go out and do things that I wasn't doing when I was locked in this domestic sort of situation. And my ex-husband and I are still super team together, co-parenting our daughter and supporting each other in other ways if we need it. But romantically, wouldn't it be nice to just have, I don't know, it's that someone, that you can count on in a way. A couple of weeks ago when I came home from my soccer game on a Thursday night, and I opened the door, and dark apartment, right? And I played such a great game. And I cried my eyes out when I walked in the door, almost immediately, because the darkness of my apartment and the high I was on from playing this really great game. And then I just sat there and I ate a bowl of cereal for dinner by myself. And wouldn't that be awesome if there was someone there who'd just say, hey, how was your game? And then I say, it was awesome. I did really great. And the guy on the other team came to congratulate me. And then, we have sex and then we go to sleep. I don't necessarily want to replicate domesticity again. That's not necessarily my goal in any way. But I do miss having a pairing.
What I think is interesting is you, just even in this conversation, have brought up both the positives and negatives of partnerships and being on your own. You talk about rediscovering a lot of the creative arts that you like, and I think you can lose yourself sometimes in a romantic relationship. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is just grappling with this. Is being alone good or bad?
Right. I just wish the question wasn't framed that way, but it does seem to be that way. Do you know what I mean? Being alone is great. And then there's lots of people who thinks being selfish or being alone is how they're going to get through this part of their life. And to me, it's the antithesis of human growth, right? Is to say, the way that I'm going to get my stuff in order and the way I'm going to succeed or the way I'm going to grow as an individual is to say, I need to be selfish and I need to be alone. For me, that's the opposite of everything I think is true. I feel like I'm so optimistic. Somebody told me I'm hooked on hope, which is, true. I just really believe, like, let's just keep trying. Like, let's just keep going for it. Take a chance. Jump off the cliff. Like, who cares? Like, how can you find someone interesting but then, like, run away because you're afraid of whatever, some end goal instead of living in the present? Because fuck it, man. Like, everything is about being hurt. I mean, I've been hurt, and so what? Like, keep going, man. Try something else. How can you know anything until you do it? So, I have to know what it's like to be alone, and I'm doing it. I'm being alone. I'm learning about it. I'm not liking it. I'm not buying in that I have to like it. I don't know if I've bought into it yet. Right? Learn to love being alone. I don't.
Tiny Conversations is a podcast featuring small discussions on big ideas. If you like what you've heard, you can subscribe to get more episodes in iTunes or Stitcher. Our theme music is by Broke for Free. If you want to learn more about Michelle, you can follow her on Instagram at Parise Girl. Michelle, what do you post pictures of?
Your regular selfies and like funny things on the street. And then often it's some of my artwork.
I tweet at Brian Colley. Thanks for listening.